Let's begin creating our engine block in Onshape. The first feature that I'm going to create will be a revolve. It needs a sketch. Let's sketch on the datum plane right. I will hold down the right mouse button to create a new sketch. And I always prefer to view normal to the sketch plane, and I can get to that from the right mouse button. For the sketch, let's start with some lines. I'm going to start right at the origin. I like doing this because that way I can start sizing it correctly from the beginning. And the bottom of this one over here needs to be quite big. Well, not big, but just big in terms of the dimensions that I'm seeing on the screen. I'm just getting kind of close to it. And so that'll be my first line. So I will left click, and then let's do a vertical line. And this one will make about, so big. And then I need a couple of lines at a bit of an angle. Let's make this one about yay big, and then another one that goes up over here. And then I let it snap into lining up with the endpoint of the first line and close it off. Let me hit the escape key to get out of line creation, and that looks pretty good. Let's hit the P on the keyboard to turn off the display of the planes. Some of the entities are in blue. I don't have them dimensioned. Let's start putting some dimensions in here. I will click on the dimension icon, and I know that I want this one to be a value of 300. Let's see, I know that this I want to be 170. And kind of ugly. Let me get this one from here. Did I get it? Left click. Okay, accidentally hit it twice. Left, left. And I want this to be a horizontal dimension with a value of 120. There we go. Now the line is back to an angle. And I need a couple of diameter dimensions for the revolve feature. So if I just pick the entity itself, it's going to give me a length dimension. Oh, you know what? Let's try putting in a center line, an axis, and dimension to that. And I'll just make it horizontal and then hit the escape key. Now if I dimension from here to this entity, yep, that'll allow me to get the diameter dimension. And this one I want to have a value of 165, and also I want to dimension from this point to my center line, and this one is going to be a value of 90. All right, that is good. Let's see, I still have, one other dimension. I want to have an angle dimension from here to here, and this one I want to be 6 degrees. Now everything is black. That means my sketch is fully dimensioned and constrained. Let's hit the check mark to get out of the first sketch. Then I will use the revolve command, and I will select this face. And for the revolve axis, I will select that center line that I picked, although I could have picked the straight line. I'm going to revolve through 360 degrees. This looks great. I will hit the check mark. Let's hit the P key on the keyboard to bring the planes back so I can see them. The next thing I need is a plane offset from the datum plane called front. Here's the command for creating a plane. Let's select front, and here we have it being offset, and I want it offset a distance of 90, just sort of like kind of in the middle of that block, but not exactly. Let me hit the check marks. Now I've got my new plane created. Then I'm going to create a sketch on the datum plane called top and extrude it upwards. So let me go to this orientation, and it might actually help in this case. Let me try changing from a shaded mode to a translucent mode. And I will select the datum plane called top, hold down the right mouse button to create a new sketch, and then let's view normal to the sketch plane. And in this particular case, I know that I want symmetry later on, so it might help if I put in some construction lines. And I'll make this one about over here, and then let's see, let's create another one, and I'm just going to eyeball it being horizontal, and then hit the escape key. And let's put in a constraint for coincident to have it sit right on top of that datum plane that I just created. The sketch itself is just going to be 4 lines. Let's create some lines, and I want it going from here to about over here and then down, and I want it wider down at the bottom than up at the top. Let me hit the escape key to get out of line mode, and I always like putting in my constraints first. So for symmetric, I can pick that center line and pick this vertex and that vertex, and you saw how it adjusted the shape. Same thing down at the bottom, and I do not want it symmetric about this horizontal line. Let's go to the dimension, and I want a dimension from here to here, and I want that to be a value of 80, and I want a dimension from here to here, and I want this dimension to be a value of 75. And let's see, I want the width up at the top, this dimension, to be a value of 120, and the width down at the bottom, I want this to be a value of 140. So that's good. And this is the sketch that's going to be for sort of like the big bore that's coming out of the middle of the cylinder. So my sketch looks good. Let's hit the check mark, and I'm going to go to the, hit the sketch command. I was trying to get the one right next to it and I was distracted. So the face that I want to use, let's select, let me select other and face of sketch 2, that's good. And this one we are going to extrude upwards a distance of 270. And hit the check mark. Let me go back to a shaded mode. That looks good, I like that. Now I'm going to throw in some fillets on the edges of this big extrude. Let's go to the fillet command, and I want this edge and this edge to have a value of 50, really big fillets in here. And then let's hit the check mark. For the other 2 edges, let's go to fillet, this one and this one. I'm going to make this a value of 40, and once again hit the check mark. So there, it's starting to come along. I need to have a plane, and I'm going to create a plane offset from this surface. I'm going to use it for splitting this surface for making some draft later on. Let's go to the plane command. I'll pick this surface. It's offsetting it upwards, and I want it about yay big. I don't have to drag it to the location I want, but I just always like to eyeball it. That's going to be a value of 135 down there. And I have that plane in order to put some splits into the model. Here is the command for splitting. Right now it's set to split a part. Let's choose to split a surface. And for the faces to split, let's select these different faces going around here. And looks like one more I need to pick. There we go. I've got all the different faces that I want. Then the entities to split with. I'm going to select the plane. You can see that getting sort of like an edge there indicating that we do indeed have our split created in the model. Let's hit the check mark to complete the split feature. And by the way, in a moment, I'm going to need to go back and rename some of these features because I always hate using just the default names because I start to get lost in terms of what everything is. Now we can create our draft, and so to do that, here we have the draft command. And rather than doing a neutral plane draft, I'm going to do a parting line draft. The first thing I want to know is the pull direction. I can pick that flat surface. Now for the parting edges, I'm going to hit the keyboard shortcut of P to turn off the planes really big, or excuse me, the planes for a moment. I don't know why I said really big. And I've got parting line propagation turned on, but I always like to be sure with this one. and select all of those. And so in this particular case, I actually do want one-sided draft, and it looks like it's pointing to the right side. And the weird thing is for this one, I actually want the draft going to the inside, a value of 6 degrees. And let's check the box to reapply the fillet. Looks good. Hit the check mark. And now I've got a lot of the shape of the bore done. The next thing I'm going to start doing is putting in the shape of the fins that are going to go up and down the bore shape, that big extrude that I just created and drafted. And so once again, I need some planes. At this point, let's just hide some of the ones individually that I don't need at the moment. And I will create a plane, just offset from this surface. Let me flip the direction, and it only needs to be down a short distance. Let's use a distance of 2.5. And now I'll hit the check mark. Let's select our plane and create a sketch. And for this one, I am going to offset from the different surfaces or the faces of the surfaces. So that's going to be from this command, and I will offset this face. Right now it's showing inward. Let's offset to the outside. Let me drag this a big distance just so I can see the dimension that I want. And right now it's giving me a value of 35. Actually, I want this to be a value of 10. And I can hit the check mark. Now let's create an extrude using that face. Let's flip the direction. And it's going to be a blind depth, and this one is going to be a value of 5. And let's hit the check mark. Now I'm going to take that and pattern it. Let me turn off the display of that plane. Let's go to the linear pattern command right here. And so right now it's set to part pattern. Let's change this to a feature pattern. And let me click on the feature that I want to pattern. For the direction, I can use the top surface. And right now it's creating it in the air. Let's flip that direction. And for the distance between these, I want to have a distance of 10. We'll be fairly close to each other. Total number of instances, 13. There are my cooling fins. All right, that looks good. Let's hit the check mark on that one. All right, so let's see. What do I want to do next? I need to have some sort of like mounting flanges on the side. Now is a good time to do them. And since I need to look inside of my part, let me change back to a translucent display. And let me hit the P key to turn on all the different planes. I'm going to sketch on the plane called top. So let's select that one. And let's choose to create a new sketch. And I always like to view normal to the sketch. And so the shape for this one, I'm going to create some lines. Let's see, I want to go from here to this entity. Let's see if I can just snap right in there. So I did grab that one, and it's not grabbing into that particular edge. So I'm going to throw in some construction geometry. And I kind of missed. That's okay. We can go to the coincident constraint and select this and grab that edge, and that way we have an entity on there. Let me see now if, oh yeah, another thing I want it to be symmetric about this plane. So let me throw in another construction line. And again, I should really be sketching a little further off just so that it's not so confusing to me, like whether the entities are overlapping or not. I'll hit the escape key. Let's go to coincident and select that. And see, this is why I should not have made it so close, because I was having trouble picking that plane because, again, it was hard to see what I was looking at. All right, now let's see if we can create some lines. Line from here, and there it goes, snapping in there. And then a line about over here, and then snapping in there. Let's hit the escape key. And I'll go to symmetry first. Symmetry between here and there and there. Didn't adjust it much. I was pretty close on when I was sketching. And I need to have some fillets on the corners. So here we have the sketch fillet. I'll just pick that vertex and that vertex. And let's change this. And I'm going to use a value of 15 for that. That looks good. And let's see, do I need anything else in this sketch? You know what? I think I'm gonna create some. Am I gonna create some holes later on? But I'm gonna make this symmetric. So, I'm not gonna create any points in here because I can just use some mate connectors. All right, let's hit the check mark to complete the sketch. I know it's really hard to tell what I'm doing in the translucent display, but let's create an extrude, and I will select this sketch. And now is a good time to change back to shaded. And for the depth of this, instead of being blind in one direction, I want it to be symmetric. And I want the depth to be a value of 15. And that looks good. Let's hit the check mark. So I like the shape of that. You know what? I don't think I fully dimensioned that sketch. Let me go back to this and edit. Yeah, I have all those blue entities. What was I thinking? Let me change back to translucent. And let's see, let me right click and view normal to my sketch plane. Yeah, why did I get out with all those blue entities? All right, let's see. I want to have some dimensions. Let's create a dimension from here to here. And I want that dimension to be a value of, let's do 120. And also I want to control, let me escape out of dimension for a moment. I just want to grab this radius dimension and drag it where it's not going to be in my way. Let's dimension from here to here. And this is going to be a value of 110 should be good. There we go. That's beautiful. I hit the check mark, and because this is parametric, the extrude updated. Let's go back to shaded mode. All right, so I have the actual flange geometry. Let's throw some mounting holes on that surface. Let me hit the P key to turn off the planes. So to create my holes, click on the hole command. And I'm going to do a simple hole. It'll be a through hole. Let's see, for the diameter, this is going to be, I think, a value of 15. And here it wants to know the points where I want to place them, but I don't actually have points. So what we can use instead are mate connectors. So I'll click on the mate connector and snap to there and snap to there. It automatically snaps to the centers of those cylindrical surfaces. Let's hit the check mark. So that was nice and easy peasy. Now that I have my mounting flange and the different holes, let's mirror those onto the other side. I'm going to hit P to turn on my plane display because I know I'm going to need the plane called right. I think that's the right plane. Let me then go to the mirror command right here, and it's set to a part mirror. I want to use a feature mirror, and I want to mirror that extrude, and I'll pick this hole, and it grabs both of them because they are created within the same feature. Let's activate the collector for the mirror plane and select this plane. And we can see a preview on the other side of what we're going to get. That looks great. I will hit the check mark. And so there we have the mounting flange over on the other side. All right, getting along in here. Let's see, next thing I need to have a hole going down the middle of this through the entire part. So once again, let's go to the hole command. And for the size of it, this is going to be a value of, let's see, 62.5. And it'll be a simple hole. It'll be a through hole. And once again, I will use a mate connector and let it snap right to the middle. And it's going through the entire part. That is good. Let's hit the check mark for that one. And I need a bigger hole over on the back side. And I'm not going to use the hole command because if I create the hole command, actually let me show you what will happen if I try to create a hole with a blind depth. Let me go to the hole command, and this one needs to have a diameter of 140. And for locating it, I'll use the mate connector option again. And rather than through, I'm going to change this to blind. And the hole depth for this one needs to be a value of 150. So pretty much through this main section over here, I will hit the check mark. And let me go to this drop down and I can create a section view. And for the section plane, I will just pick the datum plane called right out of the model tree. And I'll hit the check mark. The reason that using the hole feature doesn't work is that because the hole feature gives you a drill point. And if I have the drill point over here, well, this surface isn't flat or vertical like I want it to be. And normally in a situation like that, when you have a drilled hole to a depth and you just want to get rid of this, you can use a method of deleting the face, which is this command. But if I delete the face, you're supposed to change it to the cap option, but this has a big opening in there, so the delete face is not going to work for making this a flat vertical surface. So let's delete the delete face and also delete the hole feature. And I will go to turn the section view off. And instead, I will create a sketch on this surface. And let's create a circle, center it right there. Drag the diameter out. Oops, looks like I missed. That's okay. Let's go to the coincident constraint and pick this and pick that. There we go. Now I can dimension this, and that diameter is going to be a value of 140. Hit the check mark, and we're going to do an extrude using this shape. Right now it wants to add material. Let's tell it remove material. It flipped it to the inside, and I can drag it if I want to see how it's going to look. And the depth for this one is going to be 150. And I will hit the check mark. Then if I go to the section view again, hey, there we have that vertical face in there, just like I wanted, instead of having that tapered face representing a drill point. All right, let's keep that there. And I think I'm close to showing what I wanted to do in this one. Yeah, just the very last thing that I want to show in here is I want to create another hole for the main bore. So let me turn off my section view. And so let me turn on the plane display. And for this plane, let's sketch on, let's choose a new sketch. Let's right click and go to View Normal to Sketch. Let's go to a translucent display. And for the location of the hole, I want it to be at the intersection of this plane and this plane. So let's go to the hole, and it's snapping in. I'm going to deliberately sketch it a little bit off from that plane so it'll be a little easier this time to do my coincident constraint rather than having the two entities pretty much on top of each other. Let's go to the dimension command, and the diameter of this hole is going to be 105. And let me angle and adjust everything. That sketch looks good. And then I can create an extrude, and let me right click and use select other. There we go, face of the sketch. And I'll drag it up like it's going to be blind. Right now it's adding material. I want it to remove material, and I want the depth to be through all with the part. Oh, it flipped the direction. Let's flip it back upwards. Let's change from translucent to shaded, and that looks good for the hole going through the top of the model. Let's hit the check mark for extrude 5. Let's use the P to turn off the plane display. Let's go back to a section view, and there we have all the geometry that I'm going to create in this particular video. And between now and the next video, I will just rename some of these features to make them more intuitive, and then we'll pick up and continue on with the design of this engine block. I hope you enjoyed this video. For more information, please visit www.creowindshield.com. If you learned something from this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you like this video, please click the subscribe button and ring the bell to be informed when new videos are uploaded. Thank you very much.